I guess before I start, I just want to thank the organizers for inviting me here. I must admit, when Sam sends an invite, you eagerly accept, and then at the beginning of this week, you think, 3 hours devoted to this, I'm so busy, but I definitely don't regret, and it's been really, really exciting and inspiring to hear the previous presentations. And I guess what I want to highlight today mostly is not in the slides, so we'll try sort of to talk in between them. And what I would like to do is sort of link or more or less think out loud, specifically through Steve's, Sam's, and Iwa's presentations, and Vincent's as well, and share a bit like what is the lessons learned in the last, let's say, 18 months in my current role. And as most of you maybe know, but for you that don't, so I'm an innovation manager with the FFW CRC. CRC is a collaborative research center, which means that it does a co-funding model. Each industry dollar is matched by a CRC dollar that then gets executed by a research entity. I'm also aligned with the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries of Queensland, which makes my job more challenging because I have several overlords to report to, but also more fun because I have an additional leverage to offer for that sort of co-matched funding. And I guess why am I telling you all of this? I am a little bit obsessed with the systems and not necessarily the what, but more the how. I find many things interesting. And I guess, what I would like to focus a bit more about is, what I experienced as potential bottlenecks or smooth operations within sort of the systemic approach. And I also do want to acknowledge the country, but also maybe the elements that we use to sustain us, namely earth, water, fire, air, and the ether. If somebody feels that it's not necessary, just close your nose for a minute, and maybe you'll find also some level of appreciation. I already introduced myself, but in addition to this quite interesting and multifaceted role I'm in, my background, I'm a bioengineer, so I'm originally from Belgium, so I really enjoyed Julia's and Zach's presentations because I have a bachelor in biotech. Then I shifted to agriculture with a major in agricultural economics. And then finally, for my PhD, moved even more, I guess, to the financial futures and options component of commodity markets. And professionally, I've been mostly involved working on that nexus of the agri-food industry, technology, and economics. And again, here, a little bit sort of an obsession of this holistic view, the systems, and what we can, how to make them work, I guess. And I really do enjoy my current role because I can do both. I have this beauty of access to science and researchers trying to identify problems or opportunities within industry and then bring all the parties together. And I guess, this is something I have to show. The CRC has a certain baseline. I think someone already mentioned the VL baseline. I think, Vincent, that was you. And there is a goal to half it by 2028. And in a nutshell, I always say we focus on two things, volume and profitability. So we want to reduce or transform the pile of waste, and at the same time, by doing that, improve industry profitability. DAF, the other fantastic wing that lets me fly or crawl sometimes, very similar objectives, right? So we're here mostly focusing on Queensland, but also interstate and sometimes even national orientation, value creation. We push and pull industry forward. Sounds fantastic. And I guess, a bit more how DAF is a little bit more applied research. So we do sometimes validation research. There is also a pilot plant that I will invite you to visit. It's at Cooper's Plains, very nearby, so please do contact me. 1 out of 2 in Australia, the other one is in Werribee, operated by Syro mostly. So a lot of interesting things there, mostly focusing on scalability and implementation and adoption, that additional piece, you could say. Something I also wanted to mention then is it's worth doing, both from a business perspective. So it's not just me saying, there's plenty of research internationally, but also in Australia. This is the lower hanging fruit, and I think a lot of countries start to understand that, and there is no pun, well, maybe a little bit pun intended. But in addition to that, so the ROI is quite clear from, I guess, the business perspective, but there is still, the less non-use value component or that are still not integrated that I think will be very, very interesting. And one of them is the emission reduction, abatement, I don't even know what the jargon is within this specific field, that hasn't been formalized yet. So we don't have yet any form of credits or carbon credits if I reduce waste. So that's something that we definitely can look into, Vincent, and discuss further. But even more so, obviously, I think in Australia still there is around a few million people that go hungry every day. And on a marketive and outside perspective for firms and businesses, the reputational perspective, and also the consumer non-use value of appreciation for these things. And for example, in US, they like to lead with this. They have an upcycled label. I must admit intuitively, I initially thought I would never pay more for something that would have gone to waste. And now you put a label on it and expect a premium, but apparently it works. It's sort of a marketing thing, and it becomes I don't want to call it a hype, but it's a trend that we see in the food industry to start using this more and more to appeal to the more sustainability sensitive consumer that seem to appreciate that and want to also pay extra dollars for it. And very quick on the type of projects that I like to focus on, and this is also an example, I guess, of that sort of attempt of systems thinking. And it really goes from, data science driven approaches. You can call it digital twins and all kinds of interesting and complex terminology to different types of processing, really, shelf stabling and new product development linked with the consumer and sensory things. Please, if you want to hear more, contact me offline. I'll share details as well, or ask Sam for my details. What I wanted to illustrate here is that when designing these type of projects, and then they're a bit wide, so we'll look at phases. I tend to work with either one industry, one problem, one research organization, to 5 industries. Not just companies, but industries, 5 massive research partners, and 15 problems in one. And it becomes quite of a challenge to herd different herds of cats. And I have to ask myself, why is that? What's the problem? What works, what doesn't? And one of the reasons I'm really happy that I joined this session, I do feel I had a few aha moments. And I think especially that slide that Uwe showed on the profiles of people with different types of biases, and I might be misquoting him, where he kind of indicated that if we want to, have a certain profession, avoid that, we should select people accordingly. And then I realized that, I think I'm doing that as well, right? I'm quite fortunate to have a large number of opportunities that come across my desk that I can sort of look into. And I try to reflect, and I wish I had a bit more time to think on these things, like what is it that makes some things go very smooth? And to exemplify one project, we can get it up in 2 weeks' time from conception to final approval. And another one can take 12 months, if not more, and it's still ongoing. And as I sort of try to chew through these things, I don't know if there's any more slides. And yeah, I guess, so I also written a few short pieces in the Food Australia journal that kind of hint towards that. But I guess what I'm starting to also realize that when we talk about collaborative approaches and systems and best cab, multifaceted teams, it's really amazing, and I fully encourage that. But I also would like to provoke a little bit and think about those biases that Uwe talked about, let's start being aware of them too, because I realized to be successful in my role, I naturally start looking for people who we then in layman's term call like-minded, same culture, ideology, whatever you want. We don't have yet the proper jargon, in my opinion, to really create the high-performing teams that are suitable and still inclusive, but avoid different thresholds. And I really enjoy that idea of selfish actors on the bottom, could be a healthcare professional to maybe ideological without moral judgment to it, but it does really help a lot when you have certain type of actors that have a similar incentivization mindset. And again, you please help me develop a jargon there. And if you want to do research in that field, really happy to look into that, especially in the agri-food space. Because my hypothesis is when we can create teams and systems that are of a same bias profile or similar, without going to confirmation biases, I do believe we can make things go much faster and smoother and develop sort of an internal culture of speed and communication. And I'll leave it at that. Again, I always have an open door policy. Feel free to reach out for any type of questions. Just don't be upset if I don't respond immediately, but I always will. Thank you very much.